Welcome to the Human Ecology podcast with international teachers and authors Bill Tara and Marlene Watson-Tara. Between them, they will share with you their combined 100 years of experience in teaching an approach to personal and planetary well-being that combines ancient wisdom, modern science, and common sense. The Human Ecology Project is based on the understanding that empowered women and men can be an effective force for social change by modeling a way of life that is sustainable, healthy, and respects both human and non-human life.
A warm welcome to everyone around the world to our Human Ecology Project. Bill and I are, as always, decade after decade in service for a healthy world for humans and non-humans alike. It's an absolute joy today to introduce you all to Dr. Angela Crawford. She's a psychologist, a vegan educator, and author of the recently published The Vegan Transformation, a journey to heal yourself and the world. And boy, do we need this book. Angela holds a doctorate in clinical psychology and previously worked as a psychotherapist for 25 years. Empowering clients toward greater holistic well-being is one of her many passions. So a big warm welcome to you, Angela.
Well, thank you. So glad to meet you and be here.
Fantastic. Well, I have many questions for you. This year in particular is calling on all of us more than ever to bolster our inner strengths and put all our individual powers, if you will, together for the greater good. So, Angela, can you share your insights with the audience on that, what I've just said there, especially as you detail in your new book, introducing a biologically grounded perspective on human nature? And your accompanying insights into how to improve your life are so many. So I think we should kick off with that, if that's good for you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, in working as a psychologist, and a psychotherapist for many years, and then doing the research for my book, which was specifically with people on the vegan journey and seeing how their life had transformed through that journey, I think a few things that really came through, especially with the research and the interviews and surveys that I did with people on the vegan journey, is this idea that identifying and aligning with our values, I think, is one foundational thing that came through. When I interviewed people about what made their life fulfilling and what they gained from being on the path to a more aligned life, a more compassionate life, they said, finally, I feel more aligned with my values. And so I think one thing is just actually knowing what our values are and trying to honor them through the choices we make. So many of us care about our health, but we get confused about what to do on behalf of health. We care about the planet, but we don't know sometimes to help our planet. And most of us are compassionate for animals, but we sort of have compartmentalization sometimes of which animals we choose to care about. So, I think for me, I have some general feelings about what helps our health and well-being overall, but having become first vegetarian and then vegan, I've come to feel that for me, that choice, and for many people I interviewed, fits in so well with everything I value. It kind of pulls together the things I care about, caring for animals, for all sentient beings, caring for our planet the best I can, and actually doing what is good for my own health as well. So that's, I guess, a starting point.
No, that's fantastic. And also, I like in the book, you talk about the impact on emotional and spiritual well-being, the psychological benefits of living a vegan life. And it's interesting, Angela, because both Bill and I, over the decades, we've actually had psychologists come to us for health counselling. They had health problems, whatever. And it was so fantastic because they said, this opened a whole new window of opportunity for me that I never thought about for my own patients. So, that was a real fantastic way of Bill and I getting our work into another different spectre. In fact, some of these psychologists actually added a kitchen onto their practice. Amazing. So you talk about the psychological benefits of living a vegan life in terms of emotional and spiritual well-being. If you can
Yeah,
expand on that, brilliant.
definitely. And so to give a little bit of grounding here, when I researched and wrote my book, The Vegan Transformation, I read a lot of books that have to do with the physical health benefits of a plant-based or vegan lifestyle, especially a whole food version of a vegan diet.
Yeah.
Um, I'd seen a lot about the important ethics of choosing to not eat animals and, all the implications of our diet for animals. But I hadn't seen as much written about how does choosing a vegan, compassionate, plant-based lifestyle affect us emotionally and spiritually. So that was what I wanted to look at through my research. So that involved surveying about 350 vegans and then following up with in-depth interviews with about 75. And, I think there's two levels that the benefits can unfold. One is the more nutritional level that, simply eating plants, and getting a lot of antioxidants and fruits and vegetables helps our emotional well-being much the way research has shown it helps our physical well-being. So there's this nutritional piece of it that, eating an anti-inflammatory plant-sourced diet with lots of nutrients, there's research that suggests that that boosts our neurotransmitters and our brain functioning, so and that, better emotional well-being can result from that. And then I think there's a second level that's maybe more related to the values alignment that I mentioned earlier, that people I interviewed, regardless of the type of vegan diet they were eating, just many of them said there was this deep fulfillment from doing what they could to make the world a better place. So finding that like the choices we make each day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that it can have an impact on things we truly, truly care about. And so for many people, that realization and that sense that, hey, there's something I can do here brought a bunch of different positive things that they reported, a sense of purpose, sometimes which got expressed in terms of their work and changing actually what they were doing. Also, fulfillment, which was not necessarily being happy all the time, because most of us humans are not happy all the time, but being able to navigate the tough emotions that we might feel. But the sense deep down that through that all, I'm in a good place because I'm doing what I care about. And there were other things as well, like a spiritual alignment and empowerment, feel have more empowerment over my health and well-being than I'd realized. So those were some of the things that I discovered in talking to people.
Fantastic. And also, I think in your book you cover well the unique insights into the factors that make us all susceptible to dietary and lifestyle excesses, right? Which are huge. And you present ways to restore that biological process designed by nature, right? To keep us running at maximum efficiency and vitality, because I'm sure, like us, you have so many people connect with you. They have such a fear of dementia. They have such a fear of this illness, of that illness. So it would be fabulous if you could just expand a little bit on that, because as we all know, the microbiome, it's not new. It's not the new kid in the street. I mean, it's centuries old, but now science is bringing it to the fore. And I think it's a great thing that people really start to understand the connection between these neurons. So a little bit more on that would be fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, it's really, like you're saying, there's so much research that shows the connection between plant source nutrition and physical and emotional well-being, but we're not hearing about it much. Like if you just look at mainstream media or, it seems like that's more geared towards like what's the newest exciting headline, whether it's, science-based or not. But yeah, one of the things I shared is there is a solid foundation of science as well as people's personal experience showing how what we eat, as you mentioned, it nourishes our microbiome. They find that people that eat 30 or more different varieties of plant foods through the course of the week, that could really especially boost our microbiome. But just getting that variety, getting those colors, those antioxidants, it helps our physical well-being on so many levels, helps us, our immune system, it helps lessen our risk of so many of the chronic diseases that are very, very common in these times. People, I know so many people that think, oh, it's just genetics, well, I have a family history of this, and yet, our genetics are not just about our actual genetics. It's about how was my family eating when I grew up, and often I'm eating the same way that my family did. So I share in my book several people who I interviewed who had amazing discoveries of physical healing, which and I think what I wanted to convey through that, because, there are other people that are MDs that can share the physical healing even better than I can, but that how when we realize that what we eat affects our well-being and that we can change that for the better, we're empowered. And I think that is really important, because often the things we are taught in our culture don't necessarily empower us. And so I think it's so important to know there are things we can do in our lifestyle and our nutrition that really, truly make a huge difference.
That's fantastic. Empowering yourself is one of the most incredible things that you can do. And also the solution that Bill and I often talk about, one of the greatest mysteries of the ages, right? The puzzle of individual differences in human personality. We're both passionate teachers and believers of our approach to personality types through teaching the traditional Chinese system of linking physical health and imbalances to behavior. In fact, back in the 70s, I think Bill was the first Westerner to actually write a book on the 5 transformations of energy as taught in macrobiotics. It was actually called Macrobiotics and Human Behavior. And for you, Angela, through your uniquely sort of precise lens of evolutionary psychology, you explore an evolutionary approach actually, to making better choices that help your patients in pursuit of the best that life can offer them. So on their personality types, I'm assuming that you have to take that into account and tweak for each person having this different personality.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I became vegan later in my time as a psychotherapist. So, I think early on I was not as aware in my earlier years of diet. I think like many of us, I was confused by nutrition, because, so often we're taught such conflicting
Yeah.
ideas. So my own integrating the nutritional piece into it has come later in my, work as a psychologist. But I would agree with you that our personalities and types can play a difference in how we learn information, how we approach things, how we, how open we are sometimes to change, and the methods in which change might unfold. So I do think that that's important. Actually, something that I think is worth thinking more about, that you bring it up.
Yeah, because as you say, we have clients that come and they think, oh, I could never do that. And there's other clients say, yeah, I can't wait to get started tomorrow. So everybody has this different personality, and that's why we love the 5 archetypes that we teach. I mean, probably quite similar to Maslow or whatever.
Yes.
I like it that you touched on dopamine stimulation as well, because there's so much sugar and stress and poor gut health that trigger anxiety, which is huge globally, and a bit an area that you cover in your book. And you did mention earlier about an anti-inflammatory diet, but I love it that in the book you've put in these exercises at the end of each chapter. So it's like, here's what you can do. Here's what you can do now. Here's what you can do. And it's giving people steps towards the complete picture, because like you, I want to give everybody my health and vitality and passion, and I mean, I think there's less, what are we, 1% of the world? But we're the
Yeah.
good 1%, right? You know? Um,
Yeah.
and when you think about it, it's kind of like, come on, people, you have to join forces here. So that's why it was exciting to speak to you as well. One of the other things I wanted to touch on, how anxiety can be explained in a biochemical level, of course, by the health of the gut, chronic inflammation we talked about. But I would like to talk also, or you to talk also, about all the many other topics that plague our society today, and how do we break free from all these addictions and disorders? I mean, you have some stunning original research and comprehensive clinical studies that you did mention there. So, in your book, you share many successes of your patients in breaking out of this self-destructive rut they find themselves in. So, what's your format? What format do you choose for them to follow to get to that step where it's done deal?
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's a complicated, you know, it's complicated because, there's so many different things, as you're suggesting, that can plague us. I think the world is incredibly stressful right now for many people.
Sure.
So, taking in news, taking in things that are happening in our world can be very distressing. And, sort of as you mentioned, maybe one of the ways people cope, and many of us can cope, that's not so healthy, is through our addictions and things. And, of course, food is made or designed to be addictive. A lot of the commercial foods with lots of salt, sugar, and fat that can make us want more of them to try to comfort our nervous system. So I don't have an easy answer, but I tend to view things in a holistic way. I often tend to think that it's not just one thing that's the answer for most of us. It's a more holistic lifestyle. I do love lifestyle medicine, which is, a newer field of medicine that's kind of come out in the last 20 years, really, of being more mentioned, even though people have practiced it in various ways for centuries. But it really, I think, integrates the nutrition piece, strong plant-based nutrition, which I think is foundational. Like, I don't think nutrition is the whole answer to our emotional well-being, because I
Right.
worked with many people, and even those that eat healthy sometimes have emotional stress. So, but I think it's a foundational piece. Of our nutrition is off, it's going to make it a lot harder for other practices to have viewed that had gone off of psychotropic medications with their doctors. Okay, but they'd been able to, through improving their nutrition, not need those anymore. But they did also note, hey, it wasn't just the nutrition that made a big difference, but I also am doing things like meditating. I'm also have just different practices that are calming for the nervous system and that help us feel aligned. So some of the things in my book, some of the exercise, various forms of it, depending on what person resonates with, but things that calm and, regulate our nervous system. Journaling and writing exercises can certainly be helpful for many of us. And other things, just like time in nature,
Sure.
um, being with companion animals, social support, that is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Exactly what you say. And as you were saying, surviving these tough times by building resilience, right? That's what we all have to do. We have to keep building resilience because so much competes for our attention every day. And many people, they withdraw in tough times. And I say to them, don't withdraw, try and avoid the negative people and expand your social network with positive, like-minded individuals who have the same vision for a healthy world as you do. Um,
Yeah,
and we humans were wired to be compassionate, and I know you talk about that in the book, Angela. That humans are compassionate towards those in need. So, in fact, considerable scientific research even suggests that we may actually be compelled to be compassionate. What are your thoughts on that?
yeah. Um, I would agree about that. I was surprised as I read some research about compassion and that, we really are truly biologically wired towards it. It doesn't mean everybody exhibits it, but as a whole,
Sure.
humans are wired towards compassion, and that from a more evolutionary standpoint, it is something that's actually benefited us to be compassionate and to care about those in our circle. So there is this inner wiring that when we see someone suffering, there's a part of us that wants to help. I do think that many of us, for various reasons, societal, personal, we've learned to sometimes clamp down our compassion and or compartmentalize it so that we are compassionate to certain people who are like us or to certain animals that are what we consider companion animals. But then we sometimes turn a blind eye, to other suffering. And I don't know the full reason why that is, that sometimes we cut off our natural compassion.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes I think it's just, it can be sometimes personal trauma. Sometimes it can be just the societal messaging that kind of says compassion is weak or something. Sometimes it can just be that it's overwhelming to us and we don't know what to do. And so we just, rather than face it, we shut it down. But it's in there in us. And what I found through talking to people and through my reading and my own life is that when we can open our compassion, and in a grounded way that includes ourselves, because it has to be grounded. You have to be aware of your own limits, your own abilities, and where you have impact, where you don't, but in a grounded way that includes yourself, expanding it to more and more beings. I found, and the people I interviewed found, incredibly fulfilling and made us feel more whole human beings. So
Yeah.
it's there in us.
And I think it's beautiful when I'm sure the same for you, Angela, with patients, that how veganism activates such an incredible life meaning and purpose. And I know you give examples in that in the book too. And I think that's a big part, as you say, more than just nutrition, but having a purpose in your life and caring about something bigger than yourself, right? You've interviewed people from healed from trauma, right? They experienced a spiritual awakening and felt more connected to their natural cycle and more interconnected and intuitively guided and morally aligned. And to me, that's just beautiful. Right, I
Yeah.
mean, we're thinking from the gut up. So you have this. I always like to think about it's almost like they've had the veil lifted and they see the world through your eyes or my eyes now, and it's just magical to see and hear, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, you named several beautiful things that can unfold, and it's just all so interconnected, really. I think, one of the surprising findings that I wasn't really looking for or expecting was that many people did say that now that I'm not eating animals and I'm eating plant foods, one, I feel lighter and more energetic, but
Mhm.
I also feel more connected to nature in ways that I hadn't anticipated. That there's something about when you're not consuming animals and then you're getting the plant nourishment that just opens many people up to see, like, oh, I'm really connected to all sentient beings, to nature. I can make a difference through my choices, which is deeply fulfilling. And I we all want to feel a purpose,
Sure.
so it is fulfilling how this all can relate and interconnect.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's such a wonderful gift. And I know your book is going to be a gift to so many people. You've got such fantastic ideas and tips on how to sustain the vegan life, because you hear all the time people say, oh, yeah, I tried vegan. I had no energy. It wasn't for me. I didn't blah, cooking, whatever. I want to just touch on the fact that you've put in incredible ideas, tools on confronting social and emotional challenges. And of course, there's so many resources, and you have recipes in your book. I mean, everything's there. It's like having you in their own home, talking them through how to continue with their vegan way of life. Would you like to touch on some of the ideas and the tools that you've put in at the end of the book?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, one thing that's interesting is some of the studies that survey people that were formerly vegans but not anymore has shown that one of the predominant reasons that is mentioned are social related factors, that it was because vegans, as you mentioned earlier, are still a minority, and especially those maybe eating the very healthy version of a vegan diet, the more whole foods kinds of vegan nutrition. Since we're minority, some people find that hard in social situations to be the odd one out, or to be, having to go against the norms in their family or in their social group. And so that can be a challenge initially for people, and for some people more than others. But we are wired to be social beings. So I do want to normalize that it can be a challenge, and it's one that can be addressed through being, first, I think having a very strong why, which
Yes.
is your motivation for this lifestyle. If it's for health, really get into like, okay, well, how is this going to change my life in ways that help me to do what I really value, what I really care about, to be with my loved ones? If it's more for ethics or the environment, to really get connected with why that matters to you and how eating differently will help that. And maybe it's all the above, rather really connecting with your motivation, and then I think having a good support network would be another one that's really important. Have some people on the same journey as you so that you can turn to them when you're feeling frustrated at a family event, or you don't know how to handle the next holiday gathering, and, or just different things. Um, and then I would say also just having emotional coping tools that you use on a regular basis too, just that help navigate just ups and downs in general that we all have, but just adding those in so that you're, like we were talking about stress and coping earlier, how you start your day has such an important impact on how your whole day goes. Starting your day with things like exercise, meditation, prayer, or whatever you resonate with, and then that healthy first meal to start your day, and your intentions for the day. What do you hope to stand for today? What do you hope to be? How do you want to feel?
Yeah, yeah. And I think as we both teach the same, food is the central point. And out of that, everything, it's like our human ecology project, food is our focus. We take that out to health, animals, environment, society. And that's the windows that we say, find your why, just what you mentioned there. What is your motivation? And when people find their motivation, they never really lose track. And of course, it has been known that the people that become vegan for the animals are the ones that stay the course, right? But in saying that, there is a growth, and I mean, I look back to my life when people would say, "Well, what did you eat?" But no matter where we've lived in the world from decades ago, we could always find fruits and vegetables and beans and grains, or whatever you look at ethnic restaurants and what have you. So yeah, I wish you every success with the book. It's definitely needed in the world, and I hope people get behind it and start some study groups with their family and friends, and cooking sessions together, meditation sessions together, because we are not isolated beings. We're very social creatures, and everything happens around the kitchen table. That's what I always say.
Yeah.
So there's so much to be able to share in your book, Angela, and I'm very grateful to have had the chance to chat to you about it today. And
Mm.
I look forward to reading more of it in the future as well. I do have my copy here. So thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you for having me. And I will add to, for wherever people are on their journey. I've had friends of mine that are not vegan, not vegetarian, but are reading it. And because the way it's written is inviting to wherever someone is at on their life journey, health journey, I think it can invite people in to find changes they can make that are in a good direction, no matter where they are on that journey. I hope people will, check it out and see what might help them take
Get the
that next
vegan,
step.
yeah, get the vegan transformation cooking. I thought cookathon's working in different homes, and that's the way to do it with the food, right? I train a lot of chefs and different things, And it's for me, it's always the food that make people come to the
Yes.
table and say, this is it, I found what I. So you're a gem. Thank you so much, Angela. It was an absolute joy, and I'll keep in touch and hear how it all goes.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me here and for the work you do. It's just so meaningful. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Thank you. So enjoy the rest of your day and take care.
Okay, thank you.